Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Whiteboard Wednesdays with Werner. And I'm joined once again with Rudolf, one of our business development consultants. And thank you, Rudolf, for joining us. We have something to talk about. I think with what's happening in the world today, we decided to have a episode regarding the current geopolitical state and what its impact is on South African IT and cloud. And obviously that references, the war and the state of the Middle East. So, Rudolf, what have we seen? I mean, I know we've seen some impacts, but maybe you can enlighten us as to what's been happening in our local market.
Yeah, so I think the first challenge that we've had in the local market is the fact that with the big upswing in the AI in hyperscalers, we're seeing that the hyperscalers are buying up a lot of the premium silicon, so premium memory, enterprise grade stuff that gets sent to the hyperscalers first, and that's created kind of a shortage in the local markets, and that's created longer lead times, everything. And then just to create that perfect storm environment, we now have the war in the Middle East, or it's not technically called a war, but whatever they want to call it.
They're throwing bombs, throwing bombs and missiles. So
100%, arose by any other name.
No, exactly.
But anyway, so we have the war in the Middle East, and that's disrupting a lot of the logistics flows and the supply chain. So just getting stuff shipped into South Africa usually goes via Dubai. Now with all of that disruption, it has caused challenges. The increase in the oil price increases transport costs, and that just causes a lot of volatility and uncertainty in the market.
So, I mean, we saw the swing already due to the kind of purchasing demands for memory or silicon-based stuff, memory and certain hard drives and stuff. And I mean, we're getting certain places where there's lead times for certain components that's over a year out. So there's a scarcity on those.
Yeah.
There's still a demand in terms of local demand and that type of thing. And organizations are going to need to start adapting to that supply and demand situation in terms of looking at alternative options, maybe not the latest generation, maybe a gen back in terms of certain kit. But infrastructure or economic instability in terms of what is being done in Iran. I mean, effectively, and I don't want to get too political, but it looks like there's a concerted effort from the United States to take out Chinese allies, right? Venezuela, Iran, large suppliers of oil to the east in terms of China. And that could throw a spanner in the works for China's ability to project power into the China Sea in terms of the Taiwan. So we've got silicon chips being created in Taiwan, scarcity there. Yeah. We have oil, which is obviously a global requirement and resource for many economic drivers. How does South Africa sit between these two forces and our IT economy specifically?
Yeah, so our official stance that's been communicated is that we tend to try and be as neutral as possible, even though there are some factions that are aligned with the Chinese and the Iranian stance. And that also opens up that uncertainty around also being using trade as a mechanism in this battle or in this fight between the East and West. And we see that with the tariffs that they're leveraging, and that all has an impact on the South African market. And the biggest impact that we're seeing is in the rands and cents. You're talking about the supply chain. Yes, there is long lead times on things, but we can manage that by, as you were saying, looking at different generations, looking at different configs and things like that. We can largely navigate the supply chain by understanding what is available, what is not available. The biggest challenge we have is that there's major swings in the price, and that's something we can't get away from, and something that's completely out of the local market's control. Where we were seeing from January, we were quoting customers to February doing a pricing refresh, and there's a 30-40% difference in the price in like less than 30 days.
And that's not even, that's with us having a good exchange rate.
Yeah, that's
relative to what it's been in the past.
100%. And that's with the rand strengthening against the dollar. So there is really a lot of uncertainty in the market. And from a data sciences point of view, we're trying to assist our customers and our partners to navigate that and to mitigate those costs and those risks. And I mean, even if we look at one of the strategies that we're employing is if there is long lead times and there is that 6 months, 8 months lead time, is maybe looking at doing prior deployment or leveraging OCS or different platforms that we have in the interim while we wait for the stuff to arrive. And just to make sure that we can get the business processes up and running and get everything ready for when the kit arrives, we can just move the workloads across and make sure that there's no disruption to our customers.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the key thing is that, the expectation management
100%.
around what is coming down the line of this war the conditions that we're currently experiencing, let's put it this way, and the impact of the war, it doesn't look like it's going to be alleviated in the short term. Based on where things are trending, it looks like there will be a protraction of this, and definitely not a very quick kind of this round. So I mean, we are looking, and based on information that we've got, that from a silicon kind of supply issue well into 2027, mid to late 2027. Obviously the impact then of the rest of the world supply and all of that type of thing will have knock-on effects. So to your point, we encourage our customers to assess their projects where they are, and work with our consultants to look at what alternatives we can work with earlier rather than later to assure that data scientists can support our customer base. So these things are way outside of our control, but we can try and still work together as an industry to make sure that we service everything. So thanks, Rudolph.
Great.
Interesting.
Thanks, Werner.
And thank you everybody for listening, and we'll have another episode soon.